So, a lot of you probably recognize this. It's an IBC, it's a bulk carrying container. But I've converted this into an industrial worm farm. And it can take 600 litres of food scraps and it can take 200 litres of worm juice. Now what I've done is I have come to this IBC, chopped off the top of the cage, cut the top of the IBC off, taken the lid, flipped it upside down, drilled some holes and put that bottom section on bricks. So what it will look like is the lid of the IBC, drilled a bunch of holes, popped it on bricks. Now I can start to put all my food scraps on top. I'll probably put a bit of shade cloth, then some pebbles and then some shade cloth on top of those holes. Start loading it up with cafe food waste. Put my worms in there, slowly build this up until it's basically full, and all of that worm goodness I can then start extracting. I can pour buckets of water through it, and I've got a tap at the bottom which I can open up. Once that tap is open, I can pipe it down into the veggie garden. I can pipe it down towards the compost pile. I can pipe it down to a bucket system, but I can just do it through gravity feeding. So storing all my minerals up high, I can just gravity feed it down into the garden. So I'm gonna have not one, but I'm gonna have two of them, and they're going to connect to each other, and I'm going to be able to pump this entire vegetable garden just off the power of two industrial worm farms. So here we are at what we call the seating circle. It is the social space of the garden. So a lot of people forget that there is a human element to our gardens. We need places to sit, we need places to chat, to meet and to have lunch. So this is a seating circle that was designed from my two friends, Dan Dayton and Aaron Sorensen. They were working in the Living Classroom down in New South Wales. And the easiest way to teach kids is actually in a big circle. And some of you may be asking, you know, what's the benefits of using a circle? Well, the benefits of using a circle is I'm a teacher and I know the pains of teaching kids in the rows and the grids of the classroom. The kids that want to muck around, they sit at the back of the class. The kids that want to dominate the class, they sit at the front. And there's the kids in between who kind of get pulled to and fro between the two groups. In a seating circle, there is no front of the classroom, there is no back of the classroom. Everyone is equal in the seating circle, everyone can be seen, everyone can be heard, and there is no power struggle or power imbalance. We're all equal in the circle. So many meetings have been had in these seating circles, and it's just a great way to be able to hold space and have discussions through the lens of the permaculture ethics of earth care, people care and fair share. Finally, we have the permaculture food forest. So the permaculture food forest is the biomimicry of what we see in nature in a forest. And in nature, a forest has at least 7 layers. There's a ground cover, there's the herbaceous layer, there's the shrub layer, there's the understory layer, there's the canopy layer, there's the vine layer, and then there's also the root layer. So 7 layers, and we want to mimic that in our permaculture food forest. And so we've got different types of nitrogen fixing cover crops like a pinto peanut, up into the larger trees. We've got fruit trees, we've got guavas, mulberries, figs, jaboticabas, grummachamas, acerola cherries, Panama berries, citrus fruits, sapotes, chocolate sapotes, white sapotes, feijoas, loquats. I mean, the list goes on. You can really pack a lot of food producing plants in a permaculture food forest. And the way that I've designed this food forest is to have little to no maintenance whatsoever. And what I do is I have these pathways, once again on contour. The pathways are on contour and they're the only thing that I like to maintain. I'll come through with a whippersnipper whenever I need to and just maintain the pathways. In between the pathway here and the pathway there, that's the food forest section. And that's where I kind of just let nature do what it does. And it does a very good job of it. Nothing that nature is doing is ever wrong. It's only our perception of what it's doing that we believe to be right or wrong or whatever. But I like to have fruit trees, and in the middle I like to have nitrogen fixing trees, and then on the other side, close to the pathway on the other side, I have more fruit trees. And the idea is to have the fruit trees nice and close to the pathway so I can pick fruit. It makes it very easy to harvest food and fruit. And then maybe once a year I'll need to step into that section and chop and drop my nitrogen fixing trees, like my popcorn cassia, pigeon pea, Tipawana tipu, leucaena, sometimes ponciana, a couple of different trees that I put through the middle that I chop and drop, and I train in a way that when they grow back as a nice beautiful umbrella, so it makes it easier for me to come back and trim the next year around. So nasturtiums in the ground cover, there's marigolds. Sometimes I just throw seeds in there. Sometimes we just go a little crazy and just cast seeds into that food forest, because what we want to do is we want to simulate the forest floor, because a forest only grows on the deceased forest of its ancestors. So once mulch has landed on the ground and cover crops start to die off, we're actually feeding the soil all the time. And the way we feed soil is by promoting mycelium fungus. So mycelium fungus is a fantastic way for the garden to communicate with itself. Now that may seem crazy, but there's something called the wood wide web, where the mycelium, for it to survive, needs to attach to the roots of different fruit trees and different plants all throughout the forest, and it feeds off the sugary exudates that come from the tree from the photosynthesis. So for it to stay alive, it actually needs the cooperation of all the trees within the food forest, not just one. So the mycelium, for it to survive, will actually continue the survival of other trees that are in the forest by feeding it minerals, by feeding it water, by sending it signals. So basically the trees are talking to each other through minerals and chemical signals, and the whole food forest is actually working in cooperation rather than competition, which was a previously held concept that nature was always competing with itself. But actually nature is cooperating with itself, and it's doing a fine, good job at that. Because we go down here, we've got sweet potato cover crops. I've got, entire patch of sweet potato in there. I've probably got umpteen amounts of kilos of sweet potato in there. Mind you, I have to go and find it, that's the difference. But I'm more than happy to have just sweet potato, just absolutely cover that whole food forest. And if I ever got desperate or ever I really want, I can even eat the leaves of the sweet potato, but I can get in there with a garden fork and it wouldn't take me too long to find a couple of kilos of sweet potato. Panama berry. You put this Panama berry in the ground, would you believe it's only 3 years old? It just shoots up. The berries on them are beautiful little red berries. Here we go. Grab this one. And they're really, really delicious. They taste like caramel. And the kids absolutely love them. Every time I have a class here with kids, they just raid my Panama berry tree because they just taste so good. I don't normally eat the skin, but if someone out there is watching and they're good at cooking, I'd love you to make a caramelized chutney out of those Panama berries, because if someone makes a jam or a chutney out of them, you're onto a winner. This isn't very old at all. I think it might be 2 years old, and it's already weighing itself down with an abundance of fruit. I'll probably wait a little bit longer for it to ripen, but these are the little surprises that you find in a food forest. Sometimes I come down here, sometimes I don't, But the thing is, every time I come here, something is already grown exponentially, and I'll find something that I haven't seen for a long time, and it'll be full of fruit, and I'll come down with a basket and just start picking and putting it into the fruit bowl, which sometimes people touch and sometimes people don't. Sometimes it goes moldy. But alas, it is there for us regardless. And that's something I really like. I might actually see if it does. Oh yeah, this is really, really delicious. One second. So it's a very, very juicy orange. And I'm first time I've ever eaten from this plant actually. It's really, really delicious. Thank you everybody, and thank you very much for joining me on my virtual tour around permaculture, my permaculture farm, Lulu's Perch. If anyone's interested in getting in contact with me, just email me at aaron_mears@hotmail.com, or find me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, even YouTube. I usually run about 2 permaculture courses a year. We have a lot of fun, and we have a big graduation day at the very end. And we do lots of site visits and get our hands dirty, build a compost pile, make garden beds, and yeah, it's lots of fun. I'd actually really be happy to have you guys on the course and meet you guys in person, and come to Lulu's Perch and hang out with the cats on the pallets. See you next time.